the fascinating thing too is like this has transcended red blue. Like this really hasn't been like as much of a
Right.
conservative versus
That's
liberal type
what
of
they're
thing.
all mad.
It's
Everyone's mad.
been
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you look at like Ben Shapiro's. Have you been hearing about Ben Shapiro's fucking like comment section roasting him on his fucking terrible takes?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then he's trying
Which
to go
is
to war
lovely.
with Bill Burr, and it's just like, and it just exposes his hypocrisy in his own mind, and he's such a little weasel. And
He's
like
such a little
again,
weasel, dude.
anytime somebody's wagging their finger at people for like having an emotional, visceral response to this, is to me the most condescending and like shows how out of touch they are and out of sync with the zeitgeist. Like. And I'm just glad that there is something finally that the two sides can kind of like cross the aisle and go like, wait a second. Yeah, it is about this class. There's literally a system up here where the rules don't apply to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
the ruling, the ultra wealthy. It's like we've seen it time and time again.
Oh
And
yeah.
so when you have something like this and you can call it vigilante justice, it's like, well, again, I'm just like, how are you surprised? How are you going to pretend like you couldn't see this coming? And to lecture anybody about this, to me, is dishonest when you have a system designed to exploit.
Agreed. 100%. I mean, I think, who is it? Kyle Kalinske,
Boy,
had,
Kyle.
yeah, he made a very good, statement pretty much saying like, it's okay for, we deem murder as this thing, right? Like, as like, this is terrible. Oh my God. Like, you're a terrible, terrible person. But then we appoint these so-called people that are supposed to be like, helping us out but they're wearing the suit and tie, right? So they dress the part, right? How are they any better than the lower class murderer, so to say, right? When they're murdering how many tens of thousands of people, right? It's like just because they dress the part, they look, nice and presentable, makes it okay for us as a society to say, well, it's business. It's like they're nothing more than just your average day mobster at that point. Like,
We're nothing but stats to them,
oh
Like,
yeah, yeah, it's
we're
terrible.
It's not
not
true.
we're not
You're
people
also
or
money.
families. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we're a way to gouge money at every possible angle. But it's funny, you don't see their same like righteous indignation in terms of just like murder. If you look at the coverage of like even like George Floyd and things like that, they don't cover it from the same angle. Like it is so fucking weird to sit there and watch them talk about how like they're better than you and they have like this moral foundation over you, and you really can't have that type of response. Like it was like NPR. I was listening to like left, right, and center on the way over somewhere. It was yesterday, I think, and they literally spent like 20 minutes talking about like that, and be like, yeah, I just found it so unsettling that people were like excited and that
Oh my
level of
God.
reaction, and it was just like, just shut the fuck up then. Like, if this is what you have to contribute to this conversation and you're not going to dig into it more and you're just going to operate from the perspective of like, no, 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 don't you y'all better stop.
Yeah.
We're just so much better than this. No, we're
Dude, you know
not.
what? You know what I loved is speaking of Kyle, he did a segment talking about like this Laura Ingraham clip that's been going around.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it's like Laura Ingraham on Fox News basically wagging her finger, talking about like why are people so excited about like vigilante justice and shit like that when regarding the CEO. And then she like stops and she presents her next segment, which is about this guy Richard Penny, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
He like killed a homeless guy on the subway because he thought the guy was a threat. And like she's like, some people are calling him here, and she's like kind of gleeful about it because they've been on Fox News. They've been like happy about the fact that this white dude basically killed his black man.
Oh
Who's
my
basically having
God.
a health. Yeah, so she's like, yeah, he's a hero. It's like, okay, so it's bad to gun down the guy that we know for sure has had his hands in killing at least 20,000 people a year.
Yeah.
Yet this guy, and we can't be excited about that. But this other guy who just like basically, I think he shot him death or strangled him, whatever, on the subway,
Holy
vigilante
shit.
style. Like that's a hero. Okay,
That's
like,
a
all
hero.
Because he's a
no
filthy,
problem.
disgusting homeless with no money,
Yeah.
That's clearly the class-based thinking, It's just like,
right.
it's like, oh, well, he's vile and disgusting. And it's like, meanwhile, one of our Our rich ones.
The Richie Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
want to do a side note for the audience. Pat also worked for Ben Shapiro
yeah,
once upon a time.
yeah.
So
That was
you're
another
just
one
like
that
us.
I ushered you guys in, but I left of my own accord on that one.
Hey,
Yeah,
so did
you were
I.
already a legend.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah,
made
yeah.
my legendary animation, and then
Oh my
dipped out.
god. Yeah. I think about that shit sometimes, and
So hard.
dude, I cannot stand Ben Shapiro. Like his voice, his mannerisms, like
Well,
everything
he's
about what that
also
dude represents. Like I just,
he's also just so intellectually dishonest. Like that's the thing
oh,
that drives me
terrible.
crazy about
Oh,
him is
terrible. Yeah.
he's lying. I don't even know if he can tell the difference of when he's lying to himself or his audience anymore, because he operates from such a like elusive perspective, and like you can see it like really bad when like the whole Gaza thing is because he's
Oh yeah.
he's very Jewish.
Dude, and how hypocritical are we talking about that, man? I mean, Jesus
But when you fired
Christ.
Candace Owens, who listen, I hate Candace Owens, but like
Mhm.
her being fired and them not being pro free speech like they've always said they were, and like,
No.
and I've always knew they weren't. Like,
Yeah,
no,
Yeah.
these
they're
people
full of
aren't pro
shit.
free speech. You can't go into Daily Wire and start talking about Medicare for all. Like that, you
Yeah,
have to,
no.
you have to be on the specific side of the line here.
Right.
And yeah, she breached it. She got axed. But yeah,
Dude, I don't know, man. Like it's just it is terrible, and obviously big money donors, that's the direct cause, you know what I mean? It's like who is Ben Shapiro, Maybe when he first started getting into like journalism and politics, he was probably like, one of those like idealistic freedom fighters in his own head. And then once you start being
I don't think
popular
so.
and then next thing you know, you got big money donors throwing you fucking money like left and
I'm
right.
not gonna say the guy isn't intelligent, like, but
Yeah.
I
he
will say
comes
he's
from
not.
just well, look, I think you can be really smart about really stupid things if you want to be. Like, if you want to put the effort into like being the most knowledgeable about any specific thing or how you're going to operate from. And his whole thing is just debate. He
Yeah.
doesn't really care if he's right. And that's the whole thing about debate. You don't necessarily have to win the argument. You just have to, well, what is it? You don't have to win the point and be right. You don't have to defend it and it be factually correct. You just have to win the debate. And you can
Right.
do that through different tactics. And he's very like purposeful with his intention and how he like sets himself up. He speaks really quick and says a bunch of shit and then tries to throw people off and get him off his scent. But he's just so full of shit, you know.
Oh, he's so full of shit. The latest stuff that he's just been coming out with is just like just mind blowing. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, the talks about the retirement age to like, dude, you name
Yeah.
it. Like these topics are just ridiculous. Like saying that it's unfair for la da 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 about this retirement. The retirement age needs to be set to like 80 years old, and you being 60 is not a it's not an old age. And we live in the times where people are living longer, and it's like fuck you, dude. Like fuck you. Like what are you
Right.
talking about?
He's such a prick. He speaks from such a place of privilege, and he's just always had that. And
Oh,
it's really
it's
fucking
terrible.
condescending and just stupid. And I just can't believe he has a fucking audience. And his whole thing being facts don't care about your feelings is like the most
Oh.
cringe thing ever
Yeah,
because I'm like, you're
that's
the
nuts.
biggest crybaby bitch around. Like, you're the biggest bitch.
Oh, dude, for sure, for sure.
No, that was for sure. When the Gaza thing was going on, it's like you're not a facts where feelings guy. Like this is clearly feelings based. You
Yeah.
love Israel. You want Israel to like own
You
this
are
stuff.
not
You're like,
dealing with facts right now.
yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like you're supporting the genocide, which is
right.
gross considering like the background of your people. Like
Yeah, the
that's the
Jewish
thing that's sad.
community, like
Yeah, that's this thing that's so sad about the Israel Gaza thing. It's like you got people who are like intimately knowledgeable about the wrongness of genocide, and they're like, yeah, that's fucking this. There's nothing wrong with this. I'm like, oh
yeah,
god, like if you guys
it's
can't figure it out, like what hope does the rest of the world have?
right. I mean, it's okay to just like mass kill Palestinians and wipe them off the map, and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, how does like any?
It's
It's just,
fine when they're
dude,
not people, Pat.
it's
That's true.
mind-boggling.
Yeah,
It is
If you
mind-boggling.
if you can demonize an entire group of people and you can kill
Sounds
them,
familiar. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It sounds real
that's all you
familiar.
have to do.
I saw
Yeah.
somewhere that the IDF has more rules regarding like killing dogs than they do killing Palestinians.
Wow.
That's pretty
Wow.
wild.
Like you can get in trouble as IDF soldier if you shoot a dog unnecessarily, but if
But
you
not
kill
a
like
but not a
Palestinian,
child.
no,
Not a
no,
child.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
You can just straight headshot children left and right, and that's fine. That's totally good. You
Pest
know,
control.
I mean, yes, I will say Israel 100% is in the wrong. They should be tried as fucking war criminals. You know what I mean? Like, there's some real shit going on. And the US of A needs to stop funding this shit, you know? That's
Oh, one
terrible.
thing, the wealth inequality. This was like a weird stat I saw. Was what was the French time when they started chopping off heads? It's the let them eat cake
Oh, like
era.
French Revolution.
Yeah, like our wealth inequality is on par with where it was during the French Revolution, and they started like chopping off the royalties' heads. So
Oh
just
yeah,
to
we're
put
in the
things in
Gilded Age.
perspective, like another thing to be like, no, like this is just history repeating itself. You don't fucking course correct,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
You
1%.
can't live in your glass house forever, your
Yeah.
tower of ivory, and pretend like the rules don't apply to you.
Yeah. Alvin, did you see that graph that Kyle had on his podcast? The graph of pretty much where the displaces of wealth. It goes from like the 1% to where the wealth is with most common workers, and it's just
Um,
like astronomically insane. It's
I don't
insane.
know if they've been updating it, but yeah, that's the type of thing that was coming out during like
Mm,
Bernie's
yeah.
first run, like in 2016. It was like,
Right.
and that's why I'm kind of annoyed by some of the glee. Like, if you guys really felt this way about like we're getting fucked. We're getting fucked in so many ways, like inflation. I mean, just think about the inflation. It's
Mhm.
like, yeah, we had an issue during COVID. The travel lines for like imports and stuff got kind of displaced and things were messed up. But
Right.
there's like video and audio of like CEOs and executives being like, yeah, well, we're going to use this as an excuse to just jack prices up.
To
Yeah.
keep them
And
high. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and even without all that, it's like, when are people going to learn about? Like, I'm a capitalist, okay, and I'll say that,
How
but I'm
dare
someone
you?
that right, but I'm someone that understands that there is a fatal flaw, just like in every system, that humans will take something and pervert it. And capitalism, in its like rawest, most perverted form, is to extract as much money as you can
Mm,
from one side and put it into your pocket. And if you're someone that understands that we can't just like print money or whatever, so that means we have a finite amount of money. And if one person's collecting it, that for every dollar they collect, that's a dollar you
Can't have.
definitionally cannot collect.
right.
So if you have all these like billionaires, and we're close to getting a trillionaire,
Yeah.
I think Elon Musk is not very far behind on being our first dollar trillionaire.
Yeah.
It's like that you can't sustain that. He's sucking up all the money,
Yeah.
and that means you can't make as much money, and prices are going up because CEOs have to, by law, quarter over quarter, try and make more money than they did the quarter before. So
Right.
it's like insanity. Like, we can't do this. We have to figure out a
That's
way. But when are people going to understand that?
Well, that's the
Well,
thing that like the whole notion of, that graph's always going to go up. We're always going to see green, like no matter what. It's like at a certain point, you don't have any more moves. You're
Right.
just literally stealing every bit of money. You saw it, like all of the streaming services, they go up like every other year now, and it's like, why? Why does that need to happen? Oh, because
right.
number has to go up. We have to
Yeah.
have more, and it doesn't make any sense. The inflation is, like I feel like maybe 10-15% of the inflation was actually necessary, and then the rest of it was just greed, and they were just like, we're gonna
Oh, totally.
exploit the shit out of this situation. And it's like, COVID's been over, the supply chains have been reset, like.
Yep.
And I really think they underreport the amount of actual inflation that took place, because they would be like, it was 5%, it was like 15% or whatever, and I'm like, bullshit, man. I go and get groceries for me just to eat for like a week or two, and it's like double, if not triple, how much it used to be. So you're gonna say that's a 2%, 5%, 7%? What are you trying to say that is, when I'm paying double to triple the amount I did, 5-10 years ago?
For sure.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, and that was the whole reasoning why, Kamala had come out and said, like, I'm going to make it so groceries, these people that, the privatized grocery companies and whatnot cannot, you know, take that into and like rule that over your head and be like, well, we're going to keep the prices up here because that's where it is, more profit for us. No, you know what I mean? Like, and that is a knowing thing that's happening in today's society, is
Yeah.
that they are literally making tons of money off of the working class. And that's just going to be a forever problem until someone
Yeah.
steps in and says, no, you can't do that,
Well,
period.
and that's the problem with like the capitalistic mindset. It's like a company can't just sit on its laurels and be like, "Hey, we're a successful company." Like, "Oh, like you know what? We didn't make as much, but we're still profitable." They're like, "No,
Right,
we have to make more every single year." That's
right,
unsustainable. That you
right,
cannot just like consistently do that. Like, it really like something has to shift. Like, there is a breaking point, and when you see something like this happen with the CEO shooting, it's like, well, there's a part of the breaking point, and I'm not saying it's right, but
right,
I understand it, and for you to pretend like you can't understand it is infuriating. Like
right.
when people operate from that perspective, it's like, no, you're fucking spreading people too thin. Like people need, like, to me, it's psychological in the way that like if you don't have, it's like everything, you're like one terrible thing away from feeling like you could live on the streets sometimes, you know,
Right.
like you can't live that way.
No,
And
no.
they can't relate because they don't have that level of dread in the back of their mind through like the financial insecurity that you get to live through like your entire American experience. Like, and
Right.
meanwhile, we're the wealthiest country in the world, and you feel like you're just inconsequential and could end up on the streets. I mean, granted, we all have some safety net, but that comes from community and the people that you know. That's not like something you can build for yourself.
Right. Well, and that's only us talking, right? Like that's not. I
But I
mean, you
think
got
that's
to.
the
We're doing
lived
better than a lot of
American.
people too.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. But that to me is kind of the consistent lived experience for like a lot of people, paycheck to
Hmm.
paycheck living, and it's like I'm doing okay, but I still feel that, and I'm probably always going to feel that unless something really like significantly changes, you know, like in my life, you know, financially, because like
Well, there
that
has to
fucks
be.
with you, you
There
know,
has to
that's
be some sort of.
stress.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of redistribution of wealth that has to happen. I mean, I'm an idealist in the way of a capitalistic society for sure, but there should be a way for any small business or business owner to want to grow and become profitable and so on and so forth, right? Like that is great, and there shouldn't be direct control over that from the government, but at the same time, you cannot have the distribution of wealth be so drastically different to where it's a failing society, and
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. Even as a CEO, how would that ever make sense for you to then capitalize on such a profit margin to where you're putting everyone out of work and they can no longer buy said product? Like what? There is
Yeah.
no profit margin then. You know what I mean? It's bonkers. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense at
it's
all.
unreasonable, it's
Yeah.
unsustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then you add in like the extra sinister level from like the healthcare industry, which is like, okay, you go to a regular, company, you buy a thing, they give you that thing, they make money off the top, whatever. Okay, we're okay with that. But with healthcare, it's like, okay, you buy health coverage,
Right.
right? With the understanding that if and when you need that shit, they will come and cover you.
Right.
But they really make their money from denying you coverage. So it's almost to the point where it's like if you were to go to McDonald's, normally you pay for a burger to give you a burger, but it'd be like if McDonald's like business model was to forget to throw in the burger patty. If you came at the wrong moment or something, and there was
Mhm.
nothing you can do about it. Like it's in such a sinister sort of like, wait a second, we're not exchanging money, goods, and services. Where you're scamming me.
Well, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what's happening here, and
I
you're
mean,
making billions of dollars doing it, and it's
it,
legal somehow.
yeah,
and
and
the nefarious faceless nature of it drives me crazy too. It's like you've got this weird middleman between you and this thing that you need access to,
right.
and it's like they don't have to be fully accountable, and they will use every loophole imaginable to just avoid, deny, deflect, whatever. We're on the fucking bullets there, like, it's just it's nefarious. It's sinister. It's not okay, you know, and you can't keep operating like that. It's just
I feel the same about every insurance program. I think it is
Oh,
all
car
a
insurance,
bunch.
yeah.
It's a bunch of bullshit, you know. And the worst part is that they force you to have it. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? And then there's people like you get in a fucking car accident for one, and then all of a sudden that person doesn't have it, right? Well, they could get penalized at the end of the year, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, I don't know, like sucks, bro. Like you're fucked. Like your car's done. Oh wait, you didn't have the gold package. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
oh my god, man. Like seriously? Like
Well,
it's just a
that's
racket, man. It's a racket.
I mean that sort of metaphor I can think. It's literally like everybody is getting like pushed to the edge of a fucking cliff, right? And you just keep getting pushed closer and closer, and you're going, I don't have any more room. I'm going to fall off the cliff, and they're just like, yeah, well, that's not really my problem, is it? You know, and it's like you're the one forcing us to the edge of the cliff here, you know. So like,
Oh, totally.
and it's like you have space. There's plenty of space. There's plenty of opportunity for us all to have enough to live healthy lives, you know, and to not feel like we're on the edge of disaster every fucking second, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know, both sides, you know, definitely agree with the argument that there is a direct problem with our healthcare system and that needs to be addressed. I mean, even JD Vance fucking said it. You know what I mean? Like he openly said, like, yeah, when I had a baby, it cost me $15,000. I got a bill for 15 grand. And he's like, and luckily enough, he's like, you know, we were able to pay that, no problem. And I'm thinking to myself, like, people don't have an extra $15,000 sitting around. You know what I mean? Like that shows
A
like
lot of
his
people
own
don't.
privilege in that point of being like, you are like one of the lucky ones, man. Because everyone else would be like, I guess I'm gonna do monthly payments if I can, or you know, I'm gonna have to take out a loan, and that loan's gonna have a high interest rate, and that's
Yeah,
gonna fuck me because of my credit score. You know what I mean? And it's all systematically just like
it's oppression.
mind-boggling setup. Yeah, of course, to keep you down, keep them up. You know, like you'll never ever be able to bridge the gap, and that is a fucking
And by
problem.
design, by
Yeah,
design.
that is a
It is
problem.
not like the idea of like, yeah, you can make it. Like you can make it. Some people do make it. There are ways, but like I had this one take that I thought was one of the dumbest things. He's this Bitcoin guy. His name's Anthony Pompanopoulos or something. They just call him Pomp. And on the Fox News business segment, he just talks about Bitcoin and hypes it up and shit. And he was just like, they asked him about the killer, and he was just like, his take was so fucking stupid and so delusional that I actually was like, I have to comment on this. And when if I'm feeling the need to comment on a YouTube, I'm like fucking fired up. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, motherfucker, how stupid are you?
Same.
I'm like, you know what? Just take a second, write it out, don't send it, you know, do that. But he was like, this is the thing about a free market capitalistic system. If you don't like it, go out there, you know, invest your capital in things that matter, and then make a new healthcare system. And it's like, are you
Oh
fucking
my
like, what are you saying? Oh, start an insurance company because of America's perfect capitalist system? Like, it's so easy. Like, oh,
Yeah.
are you saying the thing that's bothering you is you have no money? Oh, start an insurance company. Like, that's how
yeah.
it works. It's like, shut the fuck up. That's
Be part of the problem.
delusional.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's start 330 million insurance companies. That way we all can be CEOs
Yeah,
of one, and it's easy. Like insure yourself.
it's no problem then. Yeah.
But yeah, Pat. Here's the thing though, and again, I love Bill Burr, and something I was listening to him talk about this too. But yeah, both sides see these problems. Look, I feel like Americans, we've never had a real issue seeing problems. Okay,
Right.
the problem for us come election time is like the solution. It's
Yeah.
like we can say
Non-existent.
here, oh yeah, we got healthcare is an issue, or jobs, whatever is going on, and one side's like, okay, cool, let's go ahead and make and pull some of this money down from billionaires because they're making way more money than they should, just as a percentage. Like one side would say that, and then another side is like, well, probably these fucking immigrants,
Right.
like doing something to like
Mhm.
fucking trans our kids or whatever it is. And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, blame it on the
um,
most marginalized communities out there.
yeah, the weakest people, they can't get into the country legally, but they can somehow screw things up
Yeah.
financially in a way that's widespread. So it's like, how do we get people to not dive into that, and also not 50-50 it, that which was a thing a lot of people do is they're always like, well, both sides are wrong. And look, I'm not a Democrat. I think they have their problems, but clearly, like Republicans are worse, right? Like I just feel like we have to know where to lay the blade. All right, there's if we're talking like guillotines, we need to know whose neck they put on there. And we
Well,
can't do that by being like, oh, this is 50-50, you know?
sure,
Like,
sure. I think it's just the genuine like misinformation that is constantly being broadcasted out. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, we would say, like, yes, there's a problem with Fox News or whatever. I mean, streaming platforms, Joe Rogan, whatever, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's like people definitely need to understand what's true and what isn't true. And that's always been the biggest problem, right? Like the general amount of misinformation that is out there and who's lying and who's not lying, is like impossible to really journal and update the American people on. The only thing that's going to happen is like a direct, like what would make it so direct is it literally taking away, like I said, Medicare, Medicaid, watching these things just vanish and people being like, what the fuck? Then you have mass hysteria, you know? What happens then? Who's to blame? You know what I mean? And so, and that's always going to go to the person that's in power, and if that is the Republican, then everyone's going to blame the Republicans, right? Oh, this is what. Well, that actually triggers someone's mindset to say, like, what? Maybe I don't agree with those platforms that they run on, right? But
But
I
the
don't
thing
know.
is, they muddy the water so well. You look at a lot of like the base Republicans who like hate Obamacare, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, but don't take away my Affordable Care Act." And you're like,
right.
"Really?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
Obamacare. You
Yeah.
just don't even know it."
Ah, it's
That's so
painful.
good.
That's fucking painful, man. It's so painful. I know. And that's what's, like getting back, even to the whole side of the immigration, you know what I mean? And this whole idea that we're just letting in murders and rapists and everyone's out to grab your daughter and kill them, it's blasphemy. It's completely insane. And it's on this
But
level
dude,
of like, you know, how many of these illegal immigrants are doing the jobs that the American people don't want to do, yet paying tax dollars into the state, into the federal level, guaranteeing that the Social Security is there, guaranteeing that Medicare is still a thing, on these social platforms. And then you have someone that comes in and says, well, let's eliminate that, right? Well,
Right.
they don't understand what they're eliminating. They're
well, dude,
eliminating the
California
goddamn thing
farmers.
that's fucking helping them and helping the
California
American
farmers
working.
are already sounding the alarm. They're like, if you deport half of these people, that we're
We're
not going to
fucked.
have workers. Like, legitimately,
Yeah,
like
you'll see it
most
Well, they're
come out.
like,
Americans do not want to do this type of work. It's very hard, and like,
and they're like, well, they'll do it, but they'll do it for like 4 times the wage.
Yeah.
And per the rules of capitalism, that means your groceries now go up
comes out
four
of our
times.
pockets.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing with the tariffs too. Is like Trump's like, oh, I'm gonna put tariffs and everything. It's like, buddy, do you not know what tariffs are for?
Yo,
Like,
dude,
tariffs
yeah.
are to explicitly raise the prices on imported goods on us. So,
I think
I,
you'll see the stock market go crazy for a year or two, and then it's just going to be a fucking crash, dude. It's going to be fucking bad too. I think.
ugh,
it's just crazy though, I mean, like Trump has a very, very good way of persuading anyone, right? Like, he talks on this level where he just consistently says the same thing over and over and over again until you're just like, that has to be true, right? I mean, it has to be. And, his idea of this whole like tariffs are going to save the country and this and that. And for, I would say, a good portion of the American population, we don't really understand how tariffs work, right? We don't understand how trade works. We don't understand import, export, what that is, what that does, And so the idea of a tariff, and when he just says the word tariff and he says you're going to have more money in your pocket, you make that direct connection and go, well, dude, tariff everything. Yeah. And then it's like, yeah, we're going to bring jobs back to the States because we're no longer importing from said company. And it's like, yeah, I want to like build cars here again. And it's like, right, but where do you get the fucking steel? Where do you get where do you get these raw goods that we need that we've already diminished from our own country? Like, and that's the issue too. Like, I think the whole idea of it is great, right? Like, yeah, let's fucking get it back to the U.S. Let's make it U.S. proud, and we are going to just like boom our own country. We will stand on our own. We will be self-sufficient. That is
Right.
like the American patriot. What's up? We are the best of the best. But is that realistic? No, it is not. It is not. And you can't just do that like this, right? Like you're talking like fucking years and years and years and years. I mean, how much are you gonna like just like bleed the people in order to like have this whole like we are the United States of America? You know, like come on, guys. You know, like
Well,
good.
also,
It's a facade. You know,
yeah, I mean,
all it is to pull the blinders over your eyes and make the rich even richer and
Yeah.
the fucking poor even poorer and no longer have that separation of classes, you know? So I don't know.
I will say, like, I I don't. I do think like Donald Trump in his mind has best of intentions when it comes to like him wanting to make America quote unquote great again. Like in his world, in his like he's gonna do that, you know.
Right.
But like we all don't agree with like how he's going to execute that, and like so many of the problems and what he's pointing at, you know, aren't to me like the actual problems, you know, like again blaming marginalized people and woke ideology and all this like that to me is just a way to mask like so many of the problems and to muddy the water. But the notion of like what patriotism is in this country is so fucking insane at this point, like because like I just like it's like what is it to people? It's like literally like they got so into the Trump camp of like this, I'm being patriotic because I'm supporting Donald Trump. But
Right.
it's like we've gotten so far away from like what patriotism used to mean in this
Right.
country. And like now I just think it's so muddied and literally like people throw it around in the same way. It's like the inverse woke thing where it's like woke can just basically be, a blanket statement for anything you don't like or want to deal with ideologically. You're like, I'm not even gonna have a conversation about that pussy ass woke shit, and it's like, well, that's convenient. I'm a patriot. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, you just said two things where it's like, well, I guess we've got this whole conversation covered. Let's
Yeah.
move on. And like it gave everyone the ability to just not have to think any harder than they want to, like and with that whole thing of like the tariffs, it's not just some magical cure-all solution.
No.
When you throw it around, it's like, I'm a patriot, fuck that woke shit, I'm gonna tariff everything America. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's pretty much like the whole
Well,
thing, and that's where
yeah.
everyone's at with it.
They want to cut ties, and be like, yeah, we don't want to depend on China. We don't want to depend on Mexico. Like, and in direct clause and effect of like Mexico immigration, fuck that, like, yeah, cut them off. And then you go, wait, but there's so much that we're like importing from fucking Mexico. Like,
Dude,
there's,
Mexico's dope.
oh, dude, like, it's just crazy on a whole nother level. And I always thought it was always hilarious. If you go to any Harley dealership across America,
Mm-hmm.
you can find all of these so-called patriots in there, and you can have great discussions with them about what it is to be an American, right? You ride an American hog and this and that. And I love the ideology of it all and being like, man, I want to be this like fucking bearded patriot dude who's like so hardcore,
You
like
are.
I'll chew on fucking glass and you know what I mean, and I light a cigar at the same time. You know what I
Don't
mean?
tread on me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's great, right? Like, yeah, I feel like I'm an American at that point, dude. But there's so much
There's
flawed
such a disconnect from the reality of what that is,
I know.
like
I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like I was staying with my brothers, and I'm like, okay, well, your brother is laying on the ground over there because he can't fucking eat. Like, so what's up
but it's
with that?
because a system has failed him and left him out to rot.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
we basically are like, we're not going to do anything to fix that.
Yeah, no.
Care.
They're like, well, it's not my fucking problem. I'm like, well, okay.
If he dies or gets choked by somebody,
Yeah.
he shouldn't have been mentally insane and like falling out of the support. It's like, okay, but if a CEO gets shot, like, what the fuck?
What the fuck, right? Yeah, I don't know, man. There's too many disconnects, and it's really hard to like paint a picture to where everyone can understand it on a level to where everyone can get behind it. And you would think it'd be so easy, especially on the sense of like, hey, I want more money in my pocket. And it's like, yeah, dude, so do I. And it's like, we all agree on that, right? Everyone agrees on that fundamental issue.
Yeah.
So why is it so hard to see why that is? You know what
But
I
that's
mean?
where, like, like I feel crazy half of the time, like in the American experience, because it feels so like cold and, just really delusional. And there's so many like false correlations that happen. And again, to bring it back to the shooter, it's like they're already trying to paint him as like he's crazy. There's been like these people who are like, well, we have to check in to see if he even is. So you have to like establish this whole narrative, and it's by design. Like you're not gonna like dive into the fundamental complaint that every single person almost can connect with, and instead you're gonna try to paint the picture like, oh, he's just crazy, clearly. And it's like, are you crazy if you can see that this crazy system is designed to fuck you and like doing
Right.
something like,
And you react in a way that's like if you're being fucked royally by a system, why wouldn't you react this way?
yeah,
You
Mm-hmm.
know?
like in a weird way, it's like it's almost more rational than a lot of the shit that we just have to sit there and kind of go, yeah, okay, because nobody's talking about the real problems. Or if they do, they just yell about it and they don't offer solutions. So nothing changes, and we just sit here getting mad at each other for being on a different fucking team, red versus blue. Instead of
Yeah.
like, it's these people up here fucking you. And you saw their reaction and how scared they got when finally like somebody was like, you know what, I'm gonna take some action in my own hands, like fuck this shit. And I'm just like, I can't believe it hasn't happened sooner.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's true. That's 100% true. I know that
I'm
they are
not gonna.
trying
I'm
to.
not gonna do it because that's
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah. Don't
And I'm
say
not
any.
saying anyone
No.
should,
No. No.
but I'm saying I understand it. It's
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah. I
Don't
like how
act confused.
they try
That's
to
all I'm saying.
discredit him multiple times. I mean, even coming out and saying like he wasn't even he wasn't what's the word? He wasn't involved with United Healthcare, right? That wasn't his insurer. Is supposedly what they said, right? From I forget some
Well,
report
it's
from New
it's
York,
funny
right?
too because that guy's politics are like all over the place, and they wanted
Yeah,
to like paint him as some sort of left wing loony, and he's like,
yeah. But then he like follows
nah,
Elon Musk and all this other
yeah,
shit, you know? Yeah, yeah,
he's got
yeah,
all this shit, and
yeah.
it's just like, and they've tried so many things to just like just paint this picture of him, so because they just don't want people to be like to treat him like a hero, which I'm not
Right,
saying he's a hero, but I'm saying
right,
what he's done has like you let the cat out of the bag a little bit, and it's changed a lot of minds and realization of like I'm not the only one who feels this way.
right.
Because a lot of the American experience can be so isolating, and when you do feel like you're on shaky ground, it's scary. You feel alone, and you feel like, oh man, the earth's gonna fall out from under you at any second,
Oh,
and you're
totally.
still getting pressed down by a system that doesn't care about you.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, the old issue was, the big draw from being HMO and PPO. You know what I mean? And who's in your network and not in your network, and all that shit still plays into the whole tie of, who's denying you care and not. And
Yeah.
that's a fucking scandal in its own self. You know what I
It's
mean?
so
There should be
overly
no
complicated
HMO
for no
PPO.
reason.
Like,
Great point.
yeah,
It's
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 terrible.
overly complicated. In other countries, you just go to the hospital and then you fucking get care.
Right.
You don't have to
Right.
like go
You're
through
right.
all these weird fucking things and then go over
Right.
here and then go over here and then figure out, can I even get this? Oh, this thing could save your life. There was another thing that I saw that was like there was a medication that they knew helped kids not have seizures, but they couldn't fucking give it to the kids unless they started having seizures. And then, but they knew like the insurance provider set up a basically thing that the kids had to start having seizures to get the fucking medicine when it's already like, it's like set up. It's like, no, we know like you're going to have seizures and you're going to do it. But like the system was so exposed. They're just like, no, they have to have the seizures to give them the medicine. It was weird. I'm not like doing the connecting the dots as well as I can, but essentially it was just another example of just like why is a system like this?
Oh,
Like
totally.
making it one step more difficult than it needs to be to get the preventative care. Like
No, I agree, and I'm not saying that hospitals, I guess, shouldn't be profitable, right? I mean, when you talk about profit margins and stuff, but there has to be like a sustainable profit margin that saying doctors should be paid. It's like no one's ever trying to argue the fact that like doctors shouldn't be paid a wage that is worth whatever a doctor, you know, should be paid, right? Like, I mean, like that, yeah, you got to have like 10, 12 years of schooling, like fucking,
But the
yeah,
doctors are kind of slaves to the system too.
oh,
They're the ones
100%,
like they
100%.
get bent and have to fit into the insurance provider's thing to make sure they
Oh,
get paid.
definitely.
But again, it's just like it doesn't have to be this way. There are
No,
proven models
no.
in developed countries that work and people get access to healthcare. Instead of thinking of it as it needs to be profitable, it needs to be sustainable. It needs
Right.
to be it needs to be set up in a way that like allows it to save lives and to like
Oh, yeah.
benefit all of humanity or
I
all of
mean, how
Americans.
how many people will, you know, if they need an ambulance, will not call because it costs them like $2,000 out of pocket for a
Yeah.
fucking ambulance ride. You know what I
It's
mean? Like,
insane.
that's
Why would it ever need to
insane.
cost that much?
No,
There,
no
there was one.
fucking
This guy
clue.
got hit by a fucking ambulance, and then the ambulance took him to the fucking hospital, and then they charged him with a fucking bill.
Jesus Christ!
That's some
Wow,
sitcom shit right there. Like, come on, man.
dude,
What are we doing? You know?
dude, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's so crazy. I
But
don't
that's also
understand.
a good point too, Pat. It's like, okay, well, there's there's difference between profit and making it money, right? So if you're a
Right.
doctor, like the money you get paid is your salary. You just get paid this amount. The profit is after all the salaried employees are paid, the
Yep.
money left over is profit, and that goes to shareholders who don't treat people. They
Right.
don't change bed sheets. They
No, they don't
don't
do any of that
diagnose
shit.
shit. They don't do anything except for collect money, and it's like that's where all the waste is. And I'm not even saying. Well, actually, I am saying they probably that boardroom shouldn't exist. That stockholder room shouldn't exist because they do nothing but take money off the top
No, I
and
agree.
make
I
everything cost
Doesn't
more.
go back into the system. This is a
no,
third party
no.
entity that exists outside of the healthcare system that
Correct.
just is there to be a faceless middleman that exploits the system and exploits the people who are forced. You are often forced into this situation. It's not like you go to the doctor because it's like, sometimes it's just like I'm getting checked in. Other times, like something's seriously wrong. I have to be here or I'm going to die.
Oh, definitely,
And
definitely,
that's
and
that's despicable that
it
there's
is
somebody
despicable.
literally like a faceless entity is over there profiting off of suffering.
Yeah,
Well, like I said, I mean, and it breaks down to the simplest of the HMO, PPO plans and all that, and gold, silver. You know, I remember when my boss, when I was working flooring, had a stroke on the job, and I was like, "Holy shit!" You know. So I called nine one
you were
one.
there.
Yeah,
Okay,
I was literally there with him. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I called 911. 911 shows up, and you know they're like, "You got to get in the ambulance," and I'm like, "What the fuck?" I had terrible anxiety. And I was like, "You want me to get in the ambulance with him?" And they're like, "No, just sit in the front seat." And because they only had like two guys on staff, one guy was with him in the back of the ambulance, and the one guy was the driver. I had to be the guy in the passenger seat to let the driver know that there was no one coming from the right side of traffic, so he could just like blaze through the lights. Dude, it
what the
was,
fuck?
dude, it was intense, dude, like intense. So, anyways, and I get the phone call and it's from his wife, and she's like, "What's happening?" I'm explaining everything, and meantime, he's like, "Am I clear to the right?" And I'm like, "Yeah," you know, like, and I'm like, "Holy shit," you know. And she's like, "Make sure that they take him to this hospital because we don't have insurance with this hospital." And I'm
Right?
like, "What?" And
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Hey." The wife says to take him here, and he's like, "No, not happening. He's not going to make it." And I'm like, the driver says he's not going to make it. We got to go to this hospital. Dude, it was intense. And like, we got to the fucking hospital because it was, you know, so much closer to the other one where he was insured.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, dude, it literally saved his life, right? Because there was a short amount of time that you can get someone to said hospital. But like, let's look at the fact if I didn't call 911 and I called his wife, and then we were like, hey, because of insurance, we need to take him to this other hospital. He would never have made it,
Yeah.
ever. He
But
would
that's a
have died.
deranged. Like, that's an insane thought that you have to have in that moment. Like,
Yeah.
no, 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 go there. It's like
yeah.
his life is
Yeah.
on
Like
the
you're fighting
line.
for your life, but yet you're thinking about your
Your
finances.
finances and how it's going to bankrupt you.
Yeah, and your bankruptcy is overriding your urge to survive.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
because yeah,
how
what's your life after that? It's fucked. You
How
know,
insane is that? It's so insane.
it
I
makes
think
me.
about that time every once in a while, and I'm like, how fucking crazy, you know? It's just so crazy. You know, you
It,
put a put a fucking dollar price on someone's, live or die situation like that. It's
Yeah.
nuts. It's
Yeah.
nuts. Yeah.
This is a weird, like, this makes me
Let's get some
think
wrap
of
up
that
thoughts, guys.
I think you should leave skit where the fucking weird pig is breaking into his house and he's like, I thought it was a monster. And then he's like, and my first thought was like, I hope it kills me. And he just was like, what have they done to us? What
Yeah.
have they done to us?
I thought I was gonna be eaten. My first thought was I don't have to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah. But that's how it feels, you know? You're just like, I've felt many times where it's like I don't have a future, you know, just because it's like I didn't see a financial road forward. And you talk
Yeah.
about like declining birth rates and things like this, like where it's like a lot of people feel this way, and even if they can't articulate it, maybe in the back of their head, it does hold them back, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when an entire system doesn't have an on ramp for you to be successful and to feel like you could sustain a family or whatever, like it's demoralizing. It's consistently just psychologically, like you're up against a violent system. So like when
Mhm.
people act out in violence, like don't act surprised, you know, like
Right.
do
Right.
better, do better, ruling class. You live in a different world than the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, and I think ultimately, this is the best thing that people can do with no direct solution or power to say like change things is to talk about it. Talk
Yeah.
about it. Get with other people that align with you, and even if they don't align with you, but you can still hold the conversation because like the more, I mean, it's like a proven factor of let's say the universe, right? The more that we are aware of it, the more that is a possibility of change. It's like the red car effect. How many times have you seen a red car? And then you're like, wait, I don't ever see a red car. And now that I mentioned red car, you're going to see like a million red cars. You know what I mean? So it's I think it's in that same philosophy a lot of times. Like, the
Yeah.
more that we get the chance to talk about issues, the more that I think we should talk about issues.
Well, and it's also correctly identifying the source, you know, like
Right, right,
again, like the last however many months of politics has just driven me crazy because all anyone wants to talk about is shit that really is inconsequential, and they're acting like it's the biggest fucking problem in the world.
true.
Like throwing a fit about a fucking trans athlete fucking competing is like
Right,
that affects such a small margin, and it's like that's their problem to sort out within that sporting organization. So like why
right,
are you getting so fucking worked up when you've got literal, you know, financial oppressors that it doesn't matter if they're fucking red or blue. It is
right,
this ruling class that is making your life worse. It's not
right.
this fucking homeless person. It's not these marginalized communities. Like, get your head out of your ass and stop acting like such a fucking sheep. You know, like wake up and stay in the fucking cut and know what the fuck you need to look at and who your enemy is. It's not
True.
your neighbor.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.